Concert at the Crane, Golden Lane, happening on Sunday, February 4th, 3 to 4 p.m. at the Thomas Crane Public Library. I should mention this is traditional Irish music. We are fortunate to have one of the musicians, I believe the leader of this group that will be performing at the Thomas Crane with us today via Zoom. That would be Bill Black. Bill, I want to thank you for joining me and welcome you to the show.
My pleasure, Mark. Thank you.
We should mention that you have performed traditional Irish music in the past at the Thomas Crane Public Library. You were such a big hit, and you were, I say that with all honesty, that the crowd was into the music that you played, that you have been welcomed back.
Well, we had a great time there performing. As I mentioned before, we were short a couple of people, but what we did, we put our hearts and souls into it to kind of make up for the lack of personnel, and we enjoyed it immensely.
Traditional Irish music probably isn't difficult to kind of get that reaction from an audience.
Most of the people who would have shown up for the concert might probably, I would say, predominantly be familiar with the fact of what Irish traditional music was all about, especially in the Boston area that has such a large complement of people with Irish heritage, that the music is not strange to them. That it's something that, if they're not familiar with it on a daily basis, they've heard it at some point in their life. And it's such a happy music that even people who have no familiarity with it can enjoy it very, very quickly.
Well, I guess with that said, in the Irish tradition, talk about sessions.
Sessions are basically get-togethers, very informal get-togethers of musicians, kind of like a jam session. Most musical genres have an opportunity, informal opportunity for musicians to get together. You talk about jazz sessions, you could talk about almost any kind. But an Irish session is basically a grouping of musicians who get together to play a kind of a common vocabulary of dance tunes, because dance tunes are what we're all about when we play the reels and the jigs and the hornpipes. These are musical forms that people can actually dance to. And a session consists of an hour, 2 hours, 3 hours of people just sitting around, maybe over a pint, maybe doing some chatting in between, maybe a song. It's all very informal, but it's mostly a lot of fun.
And talk about your background. Were you always into music?
I came from a musical family. My mom and dad were professional musicians, but not in the Irish genre. My dad had a dance band. My mother was this, God rest the both of them. My mother was the singer with the band. And I knew really not much about Irish music until I met the lady who has been my wife for 54 years, who is a Dublin native, as you probably remember. And when I met Pat, then I sort of got into Irish music more, and we were in the right place at the right time because we lived in New York at the time. It was the early 1970s, and the Irish traditional scene was, to use a fancy word, burgeoning at the time in New York, and we were able to take advantage of it. And a lot of the people that we met then through the music have remained our friends over more years than I care to count. But it was basically a situation where, as I say, we were in the right place at the right time. Then when we moved up to the Cape, and we were in the Boston area, everything continued. New faces, a lot of the tunes were the same, but we were warmly welcomed by the folks up in the Boston area, and it's a kind of a thing Pat and I have never forgotten, that we were as warmly welcomed as we were up here.
Well, talk about this region a bit, I suppose. And, of course, South Boston, well known for a very big Irish population. Of course, the annual St. Patrick's Day parade every year, which I have been able to catch on occasion and enjoyed that. I had a brother that lived in South Boston, and I can recall my wife and our son. We took him to the parade. We were just out on my brother's balcony or porch, and we took part in the festivities. Just a great atmosphere, and certainly a great appreciation for traditional Irish music.
Traditional Irish music is a kind of it's spread throughout the world. I've been in sessions in pretty much a lot of excuse me, a lot of places in the United States. When I was in the shipping business, I used to do business traveling, and I always would bring the banjo with me because I would know that in a particular place, for example, Houston, Texas, there's a nice community of Irish musicians down there. They have a session. I knew when the session was, and I would bring the banjo down and participate in the session down there. I was in a session in Copenhagen in Denmark, and the music is kind of it lends itself to being appreciated by people throughout the world. Boston just happens to be a center of the Irish community. New York, to a lesser extent, but still there. And it's just a lot of fun. It's a nice way to connect with the community. And basically what we've done is kind of started a community of our own down here on the Cape, where we have people who are the Cape and I should say the South Coast, because there's an active scene going on right now over in the Mattapoisett area, Dartmouth area, where musicians have come out and are working to learn the music, learn what the tradition is about, where the tunes come from. And it's a very rich tradition, and there's no reason at all that people can't share in it. That's part of what we do is sort of educational, but not in the sense of lecturing people about it. You say, this is what we're playing, and you'll hear me say this on when we're doing the show up there. If you have any questions about it, don't hesitate to ask, and people will take advantage of that.
Well, we fortunately do have a piece that we will go to at the end of this interview that will familiarize folks with the sound of Golden Lane. It was the performance, a bit of the performance that you had done the last time you were here.
Right. Exactly. So the music that they will be hearing on the 4th will resemble the music that is at the end of the show. It'll be a little more full because we have some musicians who were unable to make it last time will, please God, be present for this performance on the 4th.
So who do we expect will be performing on the 4th?
Well, in addition to myself and hopefully Pat, we will have a fiddler named Mark Oyen, who lives down in Marion. Colin Everett, the piper, was with us on the last gig, and his daughter showed up to play a couple of tunes on the accordion. I don't think she's going to be part of it this year. And we have a nice singer, banjo player, and guitar player named John McDonald, who also lives down here on the Cape. He lives over in Forestdale near Sandwich. So it'll be myself, definitely be myself, Mark, Colin, and John. And I've invited another musician who actually has a chiropractic practice down the street from the library. His name is Kevin Daly, great box player. I've invited him to join us if he can. So, as I say, we might have five people up on stage. That's part of the fun of this, is a little bit of fluidity. But as long as you have the basic number of musicians to start things, it's the same thing with a session. You need like 3 people to get it going, and then if you have 25 people, that makes it even better.
I do want to go over the date once again before we do go to that piece from the previous performance. Again, concerts at the Crane, Golden Lane, traditional Irish music, happening on Sunday, February 4th from 3 to 4 p.m. in the Richardson Room of the Thomas Crane Public Library in Quincy. So, Bill, any, I suppose, closing thoughts before we go to that bit of music and performance from the last time you were here?
I have a website called capeirish.com. And part of the website is a page called News. And on there is a link to the concert and a link to a flyer for the concert. So if folks say, gee, I need to have something to put on the refrigerator, all I have to do is go to my website and click on the link. The website address is www.capeirish.com/news, NEWS. And that'll take them right to the page. There's no logins, no ads, no extraneous stuff that you sometimes run into with a website.
So it's purity.
We try to make it that way, yes.
Bill, I want to thank you.
As easy as possible.
Absolutely. I want to thank you for joining me. I look forward to the concert. And for the folks that are watching, we will now go to a performance piece by Golden Lane. And we thank you for watching. Once again, thank you, Bill.
Okay, thank you, Mark. Look forward to seeing you.